Interest on capital. In today's session, we will be dealing now with the second topic from the fundamentals of partnership account. So the first here will be now the interest on capital. So let us see a few points regarding interest on partners capital. Interest on partners capital will be allowed on partners capital if the partnership deed allows so. And how it is actually allowed means when it is allowed when there is a disproportionate ratio. What do you mean by disproportionate ratio? The meaning is when the ratios are not equal, when the partners profit sharing ratios are not equal. Thirdly, so this interest will serve as a compensation to the partners who is found to have contributed the highest amount of capital contribution. So according to this, the rate of interest on capital will be agreed. So they will usually decide among themselves. So they will agree among themselves when it is probably started, when the business is started, or also in between when they want, as and when they like, they can also agree and change their terms and conditions accordingly. But normally it is while getting into agreement by preparing the partnership deed. The next important point is when can this interest be allowed? So there is a certain issue that only when there are profits. So I have highlighted this term, only when there are profits. So irrespective of profit, we cannot allow interest on capital. And similarly, this has to be allowed before profits have been divided and distributed among the partners. So before that division takes place, this profit on this profit, the interest on capital must be allowed. So shall it be allowed? Should it be compulsorily allowed? The next question. So this we have already seen in the previous topic, where all the partnership deed is silent, whether the interest on capital is to be allowed. So it very specifically clearly states that interest on capital need not be allowed if such a thing is not mentioned in the partnership deed. So that is why this fourth point I have already quoted. So if such a thing is absent means then there will be no question of interest on capital. Such a topic is neither to be dealt with. So what is in the case of loss? So previously we saw what in the case of profit. Now what is in the case of loss? In the case of loss, no interest on capital is allowed. So there is no question of any partner demanding any interest on capital. Okay, suppose there is profit. Okay, there is profit. But if this profit is inadequate, what do you mean by inadequate? The word inadequate means insufficient, not enough profit. So in the meaning of not enough or insufficient profit means if the net profit, so there is profit, but this net profit is less than, okay, this is less than the amount of interest on capital. Suppose they have to allow interest on capital, say for example for rupees some 15,000, and the net profit is only 12,000. So it is very obvious the interest on capital exceeds the net profit, so there is no question of dividing the profit. So very plainly it says need not be allowed. Okay, so when it is to be allowed means when the net profit is sufficient enough or larger enough to provide interest on capital, only then they will think of paying this interest on capital. So in the above case, when there is insufficient profit, okay, what the partners can do means they can distribute it in the partners capital profit sharing ratio. That means the profit sharing ratio will not be separately fixed, but it is fixed at the partners capital ratio. So what do you mean by partners capital ratio? For example, A is contributing say 1 lakh, B contributes 2 lakhs, C contributes 3 lakhs, means the ratio in this case will be 1:2:3. Okay, this is called as partners capital ratio. Okay, next we will also discuss about how calculation of interest can be made, or of course it will be made only at the capital which is shown at the beginning of the given period. So this also will record any change in capital. What do you mean by change in capital? So additional capital introduced, that means in between they are introducing one capital, as well as if they are taking some money out of the capital, which is called as capital withdrawn. So these two factors will definitely bring changes in the capital value, and for this accordingly the interest will change proportionately. We have to calculate. So there's a formula used to find out this interest on capital. The total amount of capital for each, this is probably found for every partner in particular, individually we have to calculate amount of capital multiplied by the rate of interest and the period of interest. Very important, because sometimes it's not always a whole year. Okay, sometimes it is only, say for example, for 6 months or 9 months. Okay, or when the period is less than a year. So this formula will definitely be helpful. You have to calculate amount of capital multiplied by the rate of interest and the period of interest. Very important, because sometimes it's not always a whole year. Okay, sometimes it is only, say for example, for 6 months or 9 months. Okay, or when the period is less than a year. So this formula will definitely be helpful.